Resources for composers have never been easier to find now that we have the internet at our disposal. However, I find that it's difficult to find resources all in one spot. There are often websites that have just a little bit of resources here, a little bit of resources there, a little helpful tips here, a little bit of helpful tips there, but there doesn't seem to be a site that has everything consolidated on it. So in today's video, I'm going to go through 11 different categories I have found that help a composer get to where he or she would like to be. And I actually have them all listed on my website here. So we're going to check out my website here, sadandhaddad.com/resources. And here you've seen that I've actually compiled these resources into 11 separate categories. The first one being artist residencies. And in this category, we can see that we have this huge list of places: the Anderson Center, Avaloq Farm Music Institute, Bellagio, Blue Mountain Center, etc. And in these different residencies, the composer can actually have an opportunity to go on vacation. To actually write music in a place where they can have time and space without any other distraction to write music. You see what I'm saying? One of the artist residencies I did was at the Bliasco Foundation, and it was just a beautiful time there in Italy with all the beautiful trees, the ocean, all the really nice people that were there. And basically what happens at a place like this, and all those places that I listed in the artist residencies category do this, is they basically give you your own studio, often with a piano or a keyboard, a large desk, and they give you breakfast, lunch, and dinner basically every single day. Sometimes on the weekends they don't. It depends on the residency. And you'd be there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, sometimes even longer. And this is just amazing because it gives you an opportunity to really reflect on who you are as a composer, as an artist. And if you have a deadline, this is especially salient, because then you have the actual time to actually work on the piece and not have to do anything else while you're there. Just an amazing thing to do. So this is one of the things I would check out, artist residencies. I'm going to do a whole video on artist residencies in a future date. The second big category is business. And this is something I can talk about all day, basically. But there are certain factors as a composer you have to be mindful of besides, of course, writing music. One of them are commission fees. Another one is a decision on how you're going to publish your music. Another one, of course, is royalties from performances and broadcasts. And basically all these topics deserve a video on their own. I have a couple other ones about watermarks, scores. So oftentimes what I would do is, if someone buys a piece of sheet music from me, I prefer now to send them digitally. And what I do is I actually put a watermark on the bottom of all these scores, so I know that this piece here is licensed for performance by that specific person. So that way it also helps me out because I actually have folders for each one of these people that buy my music. That way I know who actually has access to my music, and I know that they might potentially be performing my music in the future. So again, these watermarked scores, very important. They deserve their own video. And we see these other things here. There is this great resource on how to prepare your bio, resume, CV, cover letter. And these are the kind of things that you would have to have for your website or for applying to contests or schools, jobs, that sort of thing. And the list goes on. This, of course, deserves its own video as well. The third big thing in terms of resources for composers are competition listings. There are two main ones, the American Composers Forum, and I can just show you what that looks like really quickly here. It used to be that you had to donate a certain amount of money, I believe it was a membership fee, to have these listings with the American Composers Forum, but now I believe that you could have an account with them for free. So, for example, I'll log into my account. And over here, there's a list of opportunities. So if we just look at all the opportunities, you'd see that they're sorted by date posted, deadline, fee, etc. I usually like to do what's the most, what's the competition that's due the soonest. So I go deadline, upcoming, And then I see, okay, there's this one that's due September 1st. That's today. As of today's shooting, I'm filming this on September 1st. So you see all these different dates for September 1st, etc., with the fees that are allotted, the name of the festival or the competition in this case, and also what they are in general, a quick summary. Of course, you can click on it and see how to actually apply to these different contests. Again, this resource deserves its own separate video. And of course, we have the composer side. So I'll go over these competition listings in a completely different video. My fourth category of resources involves engraving. And for me, this is so important because when I'm presenting a piece of music, I want to put my best foot forward. I believe in my music to such a degree that I don't want any doubt on the viewer of the score of the integrity of the piece of music. So for me, that means presenting the piece, not just the actual music being the best music that I could write, but also how does it look on the page? Is it the best way that I could format it to the best of my ability? And these resources here are really helpful in terms of figuring out how to engrave a score or a part properly. This deserves its own video, of course. The next major category are festivals. Now, these festivals usually take place in the summertime, especially places like Aspen, Bowdoin, Brevard. There's the Tanglewood Festival, etc. And there's a lot of these different festivals that go on every single summer. For me personally, I don't like to go to these summer festivals because that's my time to recharge, to assess how the year went. Sometimes I'm writing during the summer months and I kind of want my own space, my own time away from other people. But if you're someone that's not in school right now, or you're someone that feels like they need a little bit more experience, or someone that needs to meet more musicians perhaps, these festivals are invaluable. And I've recommended several of my students to actually attend these festivals so they can gain more experience in terms of what it's like to be a composer, what it's like to have musicians play your music, because especially if you're a young composer, you haven't had that kind of exposure to other musicians that older composers may have. So those are really important. There's actually one that I did when I was 18 years old. That was a summer series, I would say, or summer, it wasn't really a festival, it was more like a summer institute, which I haven't listed here, and that's called Fubis out in Berlin. I don't know if they still do it there. The instructor there is this really amazing professor, and he's the author of the study of orchestration, Samuel Adler. It's a program I recommend highly, but I'm not sure if he still teaches it over there in Berlin. I will write that in the description down below about Fubis if I see that it actually is still being offered. Moving on to the next category are grants. These grants are highly competitive, and I wouldn't rely on them for any sort of extra income. They're basically things that we can do as composers to get our music to people that are really high up on the food chain in terms of our field. And even if you don't get one of these grants, at least big time musicians, composers, conductors, administrators are actually seeing your music. So even if you're someone that doesn't feel maybe ready to apply for something like the Aaron Copland Fund for Music or the Barlow Foundation or the Chamber Music America's Classical Commissioning Program, I think that's okay because at least you're getting eyeballs and ears on your music. And down the line, they'll remember, oh, that person wasn't quite ready to get this grant, but I can hear that person improving over time. So this is something that, of course, deserves its own video, its own attention in terms of what these specific grants do. So moving on to academic jobs. More and more and more and more composers are entering academia. Basically, this is a way for composers to have a stable income while they're writing their own music. There is a wiki job page that actually shows all the job openings that are open in the upcoming year. So if I go to composition only, for example, you'll see the Berklee College of Music, they have a deadline October 15 for a full-time faculty in composition. Reed College, deadline September 17 for a tenure track position. University of Chicago, they have a deadline of October 1st for associate/full professor of composition. etc. So if you're someone that's really interested in teaching, really interested in mentoring the next generation of composers, what you would have to do is actually go through the bachelor's, master's, PhD, or DMA route of composition so you can be eligible to at least apply to a job like one of these jobs. This academic jobs resource deserves its own video, of course, just like all the other categories that I've been talking about. But it's just something for you to keep in mind that there is this opportunity to actually have a full-time job as a composer that is teaching as well. So this is one way that composers can support themselves, and they can also not necessarily care too much about what kind of music that they write, the aesthetic, not caring too much about the commissioning agents. They can just write the music that they want to write without feeling like they have to answer to some commissioner or to some festival or to some donor, etc. Their main source of income is coming from the university. So this is one way of making a living while being a composer. This list here I think needs to be updated, but these are basically specific opportunities that I have found over the years. Now, a lot of these opportunities are actually listed in the competition listings, and they happen as the months go by. But these two, the American Lyric Theater Program and the American Opera Project Program, these are just two that I wanted to highlight here under the Opportunities tab. I'm not going to do a video about this, though. There's not as much content here. And here we have another amazing resource, Orchestration. Orchestration is something that all composers have to face, whether you're writing for a big orchestra or whether you're writing for one instrument. I think orchestration covers all those facets, not just about writing for the orchestra. So as I mentioned, Samuel Adler's book, The Study of Orchestration, is of course listed here. And that basically covers all the different families of the orchestra. I have this resource, Instrument Studies for Eyes and Ear. Oh! And I got to update that page. The Jacobs School of Music over at Indiana doesn't have it anymore. Well, that's kind of sad. I got to update it. We have harp techniques. Hopefully this is not a dead page. Yeah, so this is a great resource that basically talks about the harp. Bassoon multiphonics. So we have this amazing resource that talks about that, and trumpet quarter tone fingering. So this is kind of random, these last couple ones, bassoon, trumpet quarter tone fingerings, but I'm hoping to add more as the weeks go by. And if you have any comments, by the way, about anything that I'm talking about here or any resources that you want to add to this page, please message me in the comments down below or email me, because I'd really like to add more resources on this page as I can. This is extremely important, by the way, the fingering diagram builder, and I actually made a video about this months ago, linked up above. And this fingering diagram builder basically sounds like what it sounds like. You can make fingerings for all these different instruments, saxophone, oboe, and you can see the oboe keys here. You can do the flute, where's the flute here, etc. And this is really important if you have timbre fingerings, you have alternate fingerings, you want to do quarter tone, microtone fingerings, multiphonic fingerings. This is really important because that way you can show the performer that you're writing for what fingering you want exactly to happen at that moment in your music. The next one is technology. This one is a little bit sparse, I admit, but we have here the Max MSP form, and this is a Facebook page basically. So I used to go on this a lot when I was doing Max quite often, and this would be a great place for me to get questions answered and to see what's going on in that community. And then here we have another sparse area on my resources page, the tools for composition. And I could list more: pencils, pens, erasers, programs like Sibelius Finale, Dorico, etc. But for now, I put my favorite manuscript paper, which is the number 27 Carta manuscript paper. I use this paper all the time, and I wouldn't use anything else basically. It's pretty cheap, relatively cheap. You get about 40 pages for $11, and it just feels like you're writing real music when you're sitting down with a piece of paper like this, jotting down your ideas. Of course, later on, I would put them into Sibelius and have them more professionally engraved. But this is just something for me to sketch my ideas on. And that's about it. those are my resources as a composer living in the 21st century. Please let me know down in the comments below if I've missed any. I'd really love to add as many resources as I can that are pertinent to composers today. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.